Hello and welcome to this evening's episode of Mapping It Out. Now, the more astute of you may be aware that I'm actually in our regular studio and not in Till's dungeon of diabolical DMing. Due to unforeseen circumstances which hit us all from time to time, unfortunately, I just couldn't make the trip to Vienna. So, alack and alas, we're back to our regular kind of programming. However, having said that, tonight's show is full of amazing stuff, whether you are a DungeonFog Battlemap user or whether you are a DEIOS user. I guarantee you what we're going to be showing you tonight will blow your socks off. And I will get into Till's dungeon at some point, although maybe not in the very near future due to, scheduling crises. When has a role-playing game ever gone according to schedule? Well, it seems to be the same here. Now, as usual, if you are new to the show, or even if you're an experienced show goer and you've been with us before, please type the word question in caps in front of your question so that I can read it, for my eyes are weak and I have many screens and I'm juggling all kinds of things going on. So if you have any questions, now's the time to ask them. We will have Till, the CEO of DungeonFog, in the hot seat as usual to answer all of your questions pertaining to either battle maps or to DEIOS. He does not answer questions on gardening, unfortunately. So, speaking of, let's bring him in. Till, hello, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine. I just did some gardening today. So
I stand corrected. I stand corrected.
No, actually, that was a pure lie. I was trying to juggle everything to get it ready for today's show, and the next couple of days are quite exciting. So please don't ask me anything about gardening. I tend to kill my plants, all of them.
Not even dungeon gardening, says Forecaster 71. What are your dungeon gardens like?
Graves.
Well, there you go. There you go. All right, folks, we've got a full show for you tonight. So let's get into battle maps. And remember, Till, you're going to do the music, yeah?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Here we go. I don't know what happened there. I think your mic just went, I don't know what this is. We're not going to play this live. So, Till, we're talking battle maps.
I did an amazing sound.
Oh, you did an amazing sound. And you know what? I forgot. We're supposed to be on that slide. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my God.
And it's supposed to be like that. Right, there we go.
Spoilers.
Okay, battle maps. Right, yeah, spoilers alert. Okay. Oh, goodness. Yes. All right, so we're talking battle maps. Now, we've got not one, not two, but 3 demos in the course of this evening. So that's quite exciting, I think. And lots of stuff has been happening across the studio, really, on both sort of fronts. So let's talk about where are we in terms of Q1 for Battlemap Editor.
Yes, I think we're quite good on track. So if you flip to the next slide, you will see that we are already, we have finished our first version of the Paths tool. We're just testing it now. Finding the last final bugs, making sure that once we release it, it is polished. Also, I need to kick Tony's ass a little bit to make sure that we have some more path assets. But generally speaking, I would call them almost finished and ready for release. Now we just need to decide on what do we want to get in there as final adjustments and kind of a release build, and when is it going to be ready. And I think it's safe to say we're talking here about days, not weeks, until this is being released to you. Yeah.
Till, just a quick question. I see folks in chat are saying that it sounds like you're not on your regular microphone.
Oh no, not again. Give me a second. That might be true because whenever I unplug and replug my computer, it tends to switch, yes, the microphone. Give me a second.
All right, we'll give you an absolute second. So Okay, so it's very exciting, folks, in terms of what Till is talking about with the Paths tool, because you're going to be getting a demo of that in a little bit. Very, very exciting stuff. Now, if you recall, last month we showed you the Path tool in development, and there was still quite a bit of stuff that was needing to be sorted out. So I know the DungeonFog team have been working on that to make it as user-friendly as possible, but as you can also see, there are still some things that will need to be looked at and developed over the course of the next few months, which means that it does behoove you, that's right, I say behoove, it does behoove you to remember to submit those bug reports as you are using the tool and moving forward. Now, we're also going to be talking tonight about moving forward, and if you have any V3 maps, version 3 maps, you will want to pay attention to what Till is going to tell us in a little bit, simply because if you're like me, I've got lots of V3 maps. It is important for you to know. So Till, are you back, or are we...
All I could do was move the microphone a bit closer. For some reason, my regular, whatever it is called, blue microphone seems not to be registered. And I don't want to mess around with that. So apologies if my audio quality is less good than usual.
There you go. All right. Well, I think we can. I can hear you, so that's why I'm a little bit worried that the stream. Is it all right now, stream?
Is it a little bit better now that I've moved it closer?
Let's see what they say. Yeah, behooves. Giblix behooves. And they're busy trying to guess now what your blue something is. Blue Yeti, blue Snowball.
Blue Yeti.
They do say it is a bit better. So
okay.
There you go.
And I have no idea why it's not. Well, I'm going to fix it. So
yeah. All right. So we're talking about Q1 and Paths Marketplace. Yes.
Yes. So Paths, we've already talked about that. Check. That is basically just getting signed off and is going to be released fairly soon. Marketplace. So well, last stream we said we are already testing the marketplace integration, which is mainly when we're talking about Patreon integration. And so far we didn't find any issues with people connecting their Patreon accounts and getting access to the Patreon artists they're supporting. So that one seems to be good. We do, and we're aware of that, have noticed that the more assets you get through Patreon, the slower our tool gets at the moment when it comes to loading those assets, because there are several thousand assets that need to be added to the prop tool, which is being worked on as part of the asset library rework that we can see, which is in the process of happening. So on Wednesday, in what day do we have? Oh, it's Monday, right? So
Monday,
in 2 days.
Yes. Yes.
In 2 days, we're going to have a first conceptual meeting about interface and interface behavior. In the meantime, Jonas and Andy are already working and improving the connection issues, or let's say the performance issues. And I feel like they're making quite good progress. We've already improved it drastically, but there is still a lot more space for doing more. And also we are about to, I don't know exactly when, but we're going to move the custom uploaded assets from where it is right now into our new FogNS system, which will then also make loading and managing your custom assets much faster. And the whole thing then coincides with the new interface being ready and deployed. Now, I do know that the interface will take at least a few weeks to develop. So ideally, it will be finished by the end of Q1, which means end of March. But there might be a little bit of a delay because we go overboard with cool designs and cool features on the interface. Or we might break it into a first release and a second pass release, where more features are added afterwards. Yeah. And
So
community.
on that side, just quickly, just to jump in there while we're talking about the marketplace and that sort of thing, because I can see it's in the script, but it kind of makes sense to deal with it now while we're here. In terms of the Patreon props and that sort of thing, if that creator shares that map on the marketplace or in the community library, those props would all have copyright on them.
Yes, of course.
But how then would a user know that they would have to be a Patreon in order to unlock those? Is that sort of being thought of? Is that being implemented?
Yes. So you can see. I'm not quite sure how we have finally managed to show it, but you get an information that those assets are part of an asset pack, contained or provided by Patreon. And you then know that you could either purchase the pack on the marketplace or become a Patreon supporter to that specific artist, which then unlocks all the assets for you automatically.
Fantastic. Just a reminder to all of you who are watching, if you do have questions, to put the word question in caps lock just in front, all in caps I should say, so that I can see that if you do have any questions. All right, Till, so is there anything else that we need to talk about in terms of Q1?
Well, the community hub, Herbert and Thomas are feverishly working on it, and they're making quite good progress too. So we're already at the point where templates are being finalized, the connections are being established, and everything is being plugged together. This also might be a step-by-step rollout where we start with the new map detail pages, following up by artist profile pages, which means you as a map creator are someone who can create your own profile page, and then finally concluding it with the dashboard overview that kind of collects all those informations and present them to you. Again, same as with the asset library, our goal is to finish it by the end of Q1, which means by the end of March. But if there are some short delays, slight delays, it might come a week or two later than planned. But looking at where we are right now, there's nothing that shouts in my face, delay. So we're quite good on track with everything.
Well, that's absolutely awesome. Now, Till, let's go to the next slide.
Yeah. It basically collects everything we've just spoken about into another slide, which says, for Q1, we are on track with Paths, Marketplace, Asset Manager, and Community Hub. We're not seeing any major delays as we progress through the development, which means that our goals for Q2 and Q4, which I'm not going to repeat, you can look them up on our website, or you watch the previous stream where we talk in more details about that. Nothing is blocking us from continuing our track here.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. That really is cool, Till. So when we then start looking at the roadmap ahead, something that actually isn't on here, but which is coming up,
yes,
is the V3 map or version 3 map phase out. Talk to us a bit about that.
Okay, so with now version 5 being around for, I would say, 6 months, 8 months, probably longer.
It does feel like it.
Probably a year, I can't remember. Right now we're still running 2 different builds, so that users who have created maps on the V3, on the old version 3, could still access their maps. However, version 3 does not include all the features of version 5 because it's an old version that we just keep running. And the reason why we've kept it running was so that people could open their old maps and convert them to version 5. Now, with the ongoing development process that we have, it gets more and more tedious to always look back at version 3 and make sure that everything works for version 3 as well. Especially, for example, the new fogginess is connected to version 5, but is not connected to version 3. So we have decided that we are going to deprecate version 3 in summer. So this is not, no one needs to get panicky about that. It's still a bit away, and all that happens is that we will turn off version 3 support. So when you open an old map, it will automatically ask you to convert to version 5. It will not be in a state where you could still work on the version 3 map and save it as a version 3 map, but the second you open the map, it auto converts to version 5. Now, the only reason why I'm bringing this up today and why we're going to talk about this regularly, is the old version 3 had a different way of drawing brushes. So it might happen that when you convert, it converts those brushes in a different. We did our best to make it aesthetically similar, but we were not 100% accurate there because it's software. So we want you to look at your maps and decide if you want to convert them with brushes or if you want to convert them without brushes. You always have that option on the conversion, and then just redo the brushes. So for now, if you have old V3 maps, now is a good time to slowly start converting them to V5, so that you're not in a hurry when we say, oh, in 2 months ahead we are going to switch, please convert all your maps, because that gives you more control over the conversion procedure. Whereas once we deprecate version 3, the system will just convert them to version 5, and your choice is basically keep the brushes or remove the brushes.
Makes absolute sense. Makes absolute sense. I mean, you can't actually design new maps in version 3 anymore, can you?
No, you can't. We've turned that off. All you can do is new maps are always created in version 5. And when you browse your map library, you can see the little tag that says V5 that tells you this map is a version 5 map. So all you need to do is you need to check your map library for maps that don't have that tag, and then decide whether or not you want to keep that map, which means converting it, or if that was a one-time map that you're actually would redo anyway, and then you could probably just get rid of it.
Absolutely.
However, I don't get rid of any of my maps, so I've converted them all to V5.
I agree. You never know, some map that you made months or years ago, some of us, yes, always have a value. Now, just while we're on the subject of moving forward and asset management and that sort of thing, I've been seeing in chat, people have been talking about, sometimes when you've got a lot of assets on your map, things can start to slow down. I know if you are not building your map as efficiently as you could as well, there can be some slowdowns and things. And people are saying, well, wouldn't it be better if DungeonFog Battlemap Editor was an app or was a piece of standalone software?
Yes, of course. But that's part of the Project DEIOS development.
That's right.
That's where we go.
That's right.
And just to be completely honest, when we developed DungeonFog, the online Battlemap editor, at first, we never really anticipated how many assets we can get into that software. With Forgotten Adventures and Keora joining, and Devin Rue is going to join soon, and there are a few other artists. Chibin Grove has joined. So our asset library is getting really massive, and we weren't really prepped for that, so now we kind of need to make up for that and fix things. But the way we approach it in the new asset library rework is going to make it a lot more comfortable to use. It's also going to reduce the loading screen that you see at the start of creating a map. And eventually, that's what we're doing with FogMS, is we're creating a kind of a connection that our app can tap into and download those assets for desktop use. And then you're not dependent on loading assets at all.
Right, absolutely. And that'll remove a whole lot of other restrictions as well, especially if you use DungeonFog for publishing purposes, for example. All right, that's really exciting. So I think that's pretty awesome. Now, before we go into the demo, we do have a new asset pack to talk about as well.
Yes, I think it's quite a cool one. It's coming up. It's called Craftsmen, and
Yes.
it is.
What inspired it?
What inspired it?
Yeah.
Well, community feedback mainly. It's just we have a lot of tables. We had a lot of clutter that you can put on the tables, but we don't really have something that helps you to specifically create shops or production sites, stores where something is crafted. And we said, okay, we can do better. We can do more assets in that regards. And so Tony and I sat down, created a list of, I think it's 50 assets. That, again, I mean, there can always be 500 assets in that regards, but I think those 50 create a nice baseline of what you can do if you want to create a shop or a store. And you want to give it that flavor that the players automatically feel that this is a tailor shop, or this is a carpenter's shop, or whatever it is.
Absolutely. Let me show you now those assets. And I have to say, they are truly beautiful. They really are absolutely stunning. So yes, as you were saying, you've got a loom for a weaver's store there.
Yes.
There's dyeing vats for wool and fabric and that sort of thing. We've got some mannequins with different bits of armor on or just clothing on as well. I can see that the one mannequin with the plate armor on would almost replace the plate armor mannequin that we had from Fantasy, which was one of the very first packs. That
probably,
came, I think,
or it adds to it.
Or adds to it, absolutely. I love the stonemasons or the statue being revealed from the block of stone. I think that's really cool. Reminding me of sort of Michelangelo. He doesn't carve a statue; he releases it from the stone. I thought that was beautifully captured. And the swirling astrolabe type of thing. What's the story behind that?
So we sat down and we thought, what would an arcane shop or someone who's crafting arcane artifacts, maybe writing spells or enchanting weapons, whatever it is, how would they decorate their store? What would they keep in there? And because I feel like if you think about fantasy, you always, at least I'm doing that. I'm kind of bringing the magic users and the arcane close to what we might think of medieval scientists, or so it's kind of a question of science and exploration, and so planet systems are something, and we all know those mechanical planet systems. They are kind of a good trigger to say, oh, this is science focused here, and so it's arcane. So we have that as something that you can put in, I don't know, in the center of your store or somewhere sitting on the table. That kind of says, look, here are men of science, or in that case, men of magic working, and those are the tools they might use.
No, I think that looks really great. And I also think that could work really well with like the clockwork asset pack as well. The colors, that sort of those brass things, I think could work really well.
And it will it will take only a few, I would say, seconds until someone discovers that he can use it completely differently.
Oh yes.
So I think it was a nice asset. So in the upper right corner, we can see that we have added a lot more stuff for weapon shops, forges, weaponsmiths. So there's a lot of smith tools, a bucket of swords, shields that you can put somewhere, a lot of armor or armor pieces, and I'm blocking parts of it. Then we said, if you want to have some woodworking, which might be the coffin maker's shop or whatever it is, in a fort, where they build their reinforcement structures, the wooden reinforcement structures. A lot of stuff that you could put down that says this is a construction site. Here's being wood cut, and planks being polished, whatever the correct term is in English. Yeah, I think you will find a lot
really well.
Find a lot of stuff in there. Also, for the tanner or the dyer,
yes.
Barrels or how do you call those big?
The vats.
Vats. Thank you. They exist as different layers, so you can change the color of the clothing and the color of the liquid that's in there. So you can really create some nice dyeing areas there.
Yes, absolutely. We won't go into what the original ingredients were for the tanneries, as that came with rather a nasty reeking smell. Lots of chat talking about the love of the new prop asset pack. I think absolutely true. There is a question from Stephen Weingartner, but I won't ask it just yet because it's talking more about VTT integration. We'll come to that in a little bit towards the end of the show. So that's the asset pack. I think, Till, just a quick question with regards to the asset pack. You said it was kind of inspired by the community. How can people suggest asset packs? How do they go about doing that?
So we have a suggestion board. You go to dungeonfog.com/suggestions, and there you can see what has already been suggested. You can upvote, downvote. Can't downvote. You can just upvote those suggestions, and you can add your own, which splits into feature requests, tool requests, as well as asset requests.
There we go. Lovely. So send in your suggestions. I think my next suggestion, you've got Greek, but you don't have Roman. Maybe we need some good old Roman stuff.
Roman is still on the list. So like I know we're not going to get bored with new assets in the near future, because we have a few. We've started a series about races where we have elves already and orcs already. Right. We have dwarves. So we know that there are still a few races that are waiting.
Yeah, what about goblins?
Exactly. The ogres just got a casino.
He just got a casino, yeah.
There's also a new pack for sci-fi and cyberpunk waiting to be done this year.
There we go.
And we have already started, and we're in the process of revamping,
revamping, re-engineering,
our initial fantasy pack, because Tony has grown in like his art skills and his craftsmanship has become so much better over the years that he said he hates his old assets and he really wants to rework them. And we said, yeah, of course, it's time to revisit them and to rework those, but there are, I think, 250 in total. 250.
It was a massive pack.
Yeah, assets. So that just takes time, and with the monthly asset packs and the paths that are being created at the moment, it has to be something that is just done step by step until it's finished. But I'm pretty sure you will see the revised assets this year.
That's super exciting. I mean, I have to say, if you compare the forge that you can see in the top right of the screen versus the original forge, which really was just the oven with some tools in it, I think very excited to see what comes out of that. Okay, so we've looked at the asset packs. Let's do the demo. So you ready to switch, Till?
I am ready to switch.
All right, and all of you watching, you can hum the music whilst the video plays, and switch. Hum the music, da 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 da. And here we go. Right, so this is the demo, folks. This is one of the 3 demos that I promised you for this evening. Till, what are we demoing?
Well, we're looking at the again, almost finished paths tool, and that it happened a lot of stuff there. Not sure if we can tackle everything tonight. We will do a detailed tutorial about all of that in the near future. Currently, and that's one of the reasons why it's not finished, is the user interface is quite complicated, and we're cleaning that up and reordering it. So there is going to be a tutorial about the paths tool once the user interface is rearranged in a way that makes more sense. Until then, I'm going to show you what we have there at the moment. So if I select this, we can see that the river itself is a path. And I can go in and so let's not edit the curve yet. I can adjust the smoothness of the path. I can adjust the opacity of each path that we have here. I can reshuffle it, which means that you might see that those segments that we've created are randomly reshuffled. So there are different variations for each of those segments, and you can reshuffle them. I can change the scale. I'm not sure what happens if I do that. So I can scale the path up and down. And I have, this is new, I think this is quite exciting, I can have different end transitions. So I can say the path should have wait, let me get rid of the other path there. Let me get rid of that one so we can see it. It has no transition at the beginning. It has a specific transition asset, which we can create, or artists can create. So they can say, this is how it starts. It's actually some kind of a underground cavern where it starts. It could be a waterfall, whatever it is, we can come up with stuff here. It can shrink. And if you put a shrink to it, you can actually define the shrink distance. And you can say, okay, it's slowly growing out of there. Or you could say that it's fading, and then again you have a distance fader where you can say how long does it take until it fades into proper existence. And the rest, I'm now in the way of myself. How did I get? Oh, wait. Okay, here. It's not really exciting. This is behavior. Like, is it map decoration? Is it above walls? Is it concealed? It could be concealed trap, or it could be trapped. It could be concealed path, or it could be a trapped path. So this is just for when you create a path. So what I would do is I would click on my paths tool. Let's start with the cliff asset here. I already have my smoothness turned up. The scaling is fine. So I've defined a start transition and an end transition. And now I can do two things. I could either click, and you can see on the preview that it already shows you where it is going. I can click and follow along that path, or I could also, wait, stop it. That was too much. Let me quickly get rid of that point here. And
so we can now modify the points on the path as well.
Yes, we're going to, I was getting ahead of myself a little bit. We're going to touch that a bit. The second way I could do it is, you saw that I was point clicking, and point clicking, in other words, doing this is more precise because it is trying to find the optimal path. It's not creating too many points. But I could actually also just freehand draw it and do something like that. And as you can see, it creates a lot more points, which means that the texture, this is a forgiving texture here, actually might create a few breakpoints in there. So the texture might not render super exactly, because again, if you think about the way that we're morphing each of those segments, there might be details that are just too many points, create too many different overlapping
angles.
Yeah. Okay, so, but I can go in and edit my curve, which means I can remove points, I can select points, shift them around. Let's not do it with that path because that is becoming tedious. But let's do it with that one and make sure that this actually fits my river. So I'm going in to edit the curve, and now I'm going to shift it. Also, there is still a flip texture being applied. So let's shift it, and you can see that it always tries to curve it, which is really nice. And by shifting my points around, I can then adjust it to where I want it to be. And if I feel like I need an additional point, I can just add an additional point in here. This little toggle here allows me to create like the outer tangent. So I think it's super precise. So I don't think that you're going to miss anything when it comes to precision. And if we would have, it's just probably still a little bit wonky with the flip texture thing. If you want to create something that shouldn't be curved, like for example, let's say, I mean, the carpet looks amazing. Let's just show the carpet. I could make a carpet like this. There you go. End it. And as you can see, oh, come on, end it.
Where has this tool been all my life?
I think that's really cool. But again, if you would like to have a carpet that's not performing like that, I don't think carpets would perform like that, actually. You can still, like, you could reduce the smoothness, and you could go click and then give it a little corner and then stretch it out. Snap to grid is also working, so you can always snap to grid. It's a little bit off screen, so let's move it up here. And you can see that it actually looks quite cool. And now we're basically refining it, making sure that those little inconveniences are being ironed out, as well as adding more paths to it over the next couple of days. Yeah.
Till, can we do stairs?
There will be stairs. They're not in there yet, but you can do stairs with that too.
Okay, because I think that's going to be really powerful.
Yes.
From an architectural perspective.
Exactly. That will be really cool because you can then do stairs that follow whatever architectural setting you have. And again, with the shrinking and the sizing, you can actually do something that is clearly saying going downwards, going upwards. And with the fadings at the end and at the beginning, you can have a stair fade into black if it's going down. So there's a lot you can do with that.
Absolutely.
Andy did an amazing job. It's much more than we actually had planned for our first release. So actually, we can almost tick off our path revision. Our advanced paths are already baked in there. Now we just need to produce a lot more paths.
Absolutely. Till, when could we see this being released into mainstream use, do you think?
I'm pretty sure.
When would you like it to be released into mainstream? Let's put it that way.
I think this week is still a week that we will need to do some of the remaining bug fixes. And next week, we're waiting on feedback from our internal testers, as well as I know that Tony just needs some time to add more paths. Now, it's amazing to have a paths tool, but it's quite useless if we don't have a lot of paths in there. So we need to wait to have a few more paths ready, like the stairs. We do have a bookcase, we do have a table, but what else can be there? So ideally, we want to start with 25 to 50 different paths. Forgotten Adventures has a lot of paths, and I'm going to talk to them if they can add their path packs to their Patreon integration. So I would say 14 days is a good guess.
Well, I don't think that's too long. I don't think that's too long to wait for these amazing tools. Now, there's a question here from Happy Clayton, and the question is, can you color the path assets? Can you treat them like a regular prop?
Of course. If you go in there, I'm blocking it. I can't.
But we're
you will
familiar
have to
with
live with the fact that I'm blocking it. But you can see that you can actually colorize them to whatever you like.
Fantastic. That's super, super, super cool. Okay. Well, I think as a demo, that's pretty damned awesome.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm really.
Now,
I can't wait to have it. It's there. I'm going to rework a lot of my maps, but it's going to be such a time saver, opposed to clicking all those assets manually together.
Without a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt, I think you are absolutely right there. Till we've got our next section coming up, which I think is a very exciting section. So I believe we stay on the screen, but you have to swap something. So we're going now into our Community Map Maker highlight section. And once again, if you can please hum a non-copyright tune whilst the titles play. No words, Till. No words. Okay. Right, so in Community Map Highlight, we look at a particular member of the community who has shared their maps in the public library and has caught our attention. Now, Till, how does someone become recognized as a community map maker by you? How would someone get there?
By making maps public. As simple as it is. We're everyone here in DungeonFog has their accounts. Everyone's making maps, and we always see new maps being posted in the recent map section if you put a map public. Also, we have a map showcase on Discord that helps a lot if you post your map demos there. Like if you have a map that you're really proud of and you've made that map public, you can take a link and post it in Discord, and we will see it. We have a map collection there, where you can get rated into our map showcase, and then you get our attention. In this specific case, you could also just win a contest, like Lord God did. He is the artist that we're featuring this month. Because Lord God won the community map battle contest thingy that we did following up our Battle of Madness between you and I. So he is going to challenge me very soon. I think it's either end of March or in April. We just need to find a date. He's going to challenge me for becoming the next champion Map Battle Madness Master. I think the official title is Fog Master. And we will see if he can take away that title from me.
Wow, there you go. Okay, so let's look at Lord God's maps. Are those all of his maps behind us?
Yes. So he's actually published quite a lot of maps, and not only because he won the contest, but because I think he has a really good eye for details. We wanted to put him onto the spotlight tonight. You can find all of his maps in the public library, and they're quite interesting maps there. This, for example, is the winner's map of the map battle contest. Quite a nice island, and again, with a lot of details in there. But I actually wanted to, I picked a few maps that I wanted to show today, and show what you can do with DungeonFog just by using the regular assets that are there and working with color and light and atmosphere. Because if you look at that, it is a really cool, atmospherical, creepy dungeon that you can explore with like, I think this is something like a weapons chamber here, This might be something like an arena where you have to fight. So you pick your weapons, you go into the arena, you fight there. Not sure if there might be secret doors here. We have a treasure chamber, apparently trapped somehow because there is a water path that you need to cross to get to that. And then look at that. I think this is a really amazing pit. I feel like Lord God took the inspiration from one of our Welcome to the Madness streams, because I was building something like that. And I surprised myself with how good that looks. But this looks even better than the one I did, because of the way that he used gliding, glowing down into the depths, and then this sparkling, glowing water down there. And I can picture my players entering that room and going, "Oh no, I know what happens if we try to cross that. I hate you already too." And they're kind of already whispering prayers to their dice. So yeah, yes. I think this looks amazing, and the same with those skull portals or stands there. So this is, and again, there's so much detail, so much love to details in here, that shows a good eye for color, a good eye for atmospheric lighting. And also, I think if you look at the general dungeon layout, a good understanding of how to make your players interested in exploring every bit of that dungeon.
Absolutely, and a lovely contrast as well between thickness of walls, using that wonderful wall effect. What is the official term for it? But it's the unevenness of the walls,
cavification. Yes.
The cavification effect, just to make it feel it feels like that's a heavy stone, granite like cave space. No, I absolutely agree. I think that's really
also
cool.
He can do a lot of different themes. Like, I think that also shows the skill set of someone who has just a deep love for map making, because that looks like a bright morning sun chapel or library. Actually, it looks like a library, with the entrance desk where you kind of already feel being shushed at when you come in there. And then this beautiful lighting that draws the eye into the room. And
lots of layer work as well. He likes to create platforms of different height. You can see the wooden layers going down and down,
which creates beautiful atmosphere.
Exactly.
Then that one actually just made me chuckle, because that looks like a prop. That looks like something that Tony did, but it's not. That is made just out of different assets, built together to create this little plane. And you can really dive into it and try to understand where does which asset come from. But you can see this is a chimney here.
Yes.
Then we have a chair. We have the wings from and actually there are two wings, like it's a biplane. We have those other sails from our airship pack. I actually don't know what that is. Coffin. Oh, it's a coffin. A nice one. The propeller. And then again, I think a good eye for working with perspective in terms of adding those clouds and the cliffs. So
is the aeroplane, is it a collection? Is it a group? So
yes,
you can just click on it and move
so
it.
You could just create it into a prop template and reuse it if you want to have an air battle for all your players. And you can move the whole thing.
You can just move it easily as well, which I think is really, really important. Yeah.
Another interesting approach was an initiative tracker. So he built I assume for his games, an initiative tracker, where you can, I believe, unfortunately there's no explanation to it, so I made my own interpretations of it, but you can actually fill that up on the initiative counter, and then possibly either on the damage state, or probably on something like a incapacitated, blinded, deafened, whatever. You could assign different states to that. So as a GM, you could have this run with your tokens on that, or if you print it and put it on the table, it would be quite an interesting GM tracker if you have minis to put upon. So nice approach, trying to do something completely map unrelated with it. And then we have another, I think, very nice one. It's an overgrown old mansion, which is, especially from if you look at what he did to the outside, he actually used. I'm not sure if the bread that's lying around here is bread, or those are mushrooms or trees. I have no idea. But again, I think when it comes to lighting and using the tree, a second tree that is blackened and transparent as a shadow, quite clever. So all I can say is Lord God is quite an amazing map maker. I'm really impressed. Last month we featured Battlesource, who also does amazing maps, and we will continue looking at those little gems that are out there, and we will feature them here in Mapping It Out. You can find all those maps in the public library. You can clone them and then just have a look, explore, find out how did those creators make those maps, what tricks did they use, and I'm almost certain that you can learn from that and improve your own map making.
Absolutely. So get map making and get submitting your maps to the public library, and you might be featured in the next episode of Mapping It Out. Till this brings us pretty much to the end of the Mapping It Out for the Battlemap editor. But don't go anywhere, because after the break we will be back with updates on DEIOS, and there we have 2 demos for you. So we'll be back just after this.
What's got you down, Ogre?
It's my dungeon, Gobbler.
What's wrong with it?
It could be so much more, you know, with more stuff.
It can't be that bad. Let me have a look. No, you've got a nice dunge swamp full of snakes and spicks. Ah, snakes and spikes. Very nice.
But, I mean, that's it. How am I supposed to attract adventurers with that?
2 words. DungeonFog.
Dungeon what?
DungeonFog.
For over 3 years, we have put all our love and determination into making DungeonFog the best battle map making tool out there. Thanks to you, our amazing community, Game Masters can pick from over 10,000 community-created and shared maps, and can turn them into their own epic dungeons to use and share. None of this would have been possible without you. Thank you. And may our tools always help you to create maps your players will never want to leave unexplored.
So, what do you think, Gobbler?
Well, it certainly is different.
Okay, and so welcome to the Mapping It Out Project DEIOS section of tonight's stream, and we're going to be going through 2 demos that we have for you tonight, 2 very exciting demos, and getting some updates as to when we're going to get our hands on a new update, which is very exciting, or at least fingers crossed when it will be arriving on our doorstep. So I think some very exciting things happening there. Now, if you've just joined us for the stream, please remember to type the word question in caps before your actual questions, so that I can just see them in chat, and then I can ask them to our guest tonight, which of course, and who is of course Till, the CEO of DungeonFog. So we've got those demos coming up, so stay with us. Till.
Yes, sir.
Back. Feels like we've only just been chatting. Exactly. So, Till, we are looking at the DEIOS roadmap.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
I think, did I make a mistake here? Should I be sitting on a different picture? Hang on a second. I think I went to the wrong slide, or at least the wrong screen. We should be there. Yes, over there.
There we are.
Yeah. All right. Fantastic. Okay. So, Till, Q1. What has that been looking like?
Well, it's thank you. There we can see where we are at the moment. So there's a new release being almost ready to be deployed, and by saying almost ready, I just mean that we are polishing and fine-tuning and refining the last bits and pieces. We found a few bugs still that need to be addressed before we can hand it out. But the new release is sitting there waiting to be put out somewhere between tomorrow and Friday. And I'm fairly certain that it is going to be more soonish than laterish. But we will see. Again, it comes down to when do our bug testers say, okay, green light, it's we don't have any bugs in there anymore. This new release will include the blueprint system. We already got a little sneak peek of that in our previous stream, but it's now finished and ready. The tectonics version 1, I'm saying version 1 there because we're going to talk a little bit about why we had to split that into two versioning system, into two release versions. The waves, the new waves tools is already in there. And we have reworked our selection for landmasses because we think from user feedback that we've got and from the experience we've collected, selecting landmasses when you're working on details might be confusing. So we have changed something in there, and we're eagerly awaiting your feedback on that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Tectonics version 2 means there are a few things, and the reason why we had to split that up is because February was quite a tough month when it comes to the health of our development team. We had a lot of sick leaves due to COVID. So I think 3 or 4 developers, not all at the same time, but over the course of February, had to report sick for a week or two. Because they caught the Omicron variation and just had to take a break. So from what we wanted to finish initially, we couldn't finish all of it when it comes to tectonics, which means the UI still needs to be polished a little bit. I think it is, as it is right now, a little bit confusing for someone who hasn't been playing around with the alpha builds so far. If you remember in our latest mapping it out, we were talking about pre-coloring those landmasses based on a height map. Now, unfortunately, that process has started but isn't finished. And there's general bug fixing where we always run into issues where we say, oh, we've never tested it at that zoom level. So there's still a refinement process going on. However, I think from where we are, it is in a state that we can hand out the tectonics as a first version and then build upon that. Coming up after that is the export, because we know that export is terrible at the moment. We've been talking about that so long, so now we're tackling that. And the layers system, I have a demo for that. Just needs some final refinements. So it's not part of this release because it is buggy at some points and crashing the application eventually sometimes. And once that is polished, we can hand out the layer system. So we're going to take a look at the layer system, but later. Right now, we're looking at I don't know, what are we looking at next? I think there's a second screen.
There's another slide, yes.
Yes. So basically, that was again from our general roadmap for this year. When we look at Q1, blueprints check, tectonics still a little bit in progress, waves check, layers check, export and copy paste haven't been touched yet fully, so they're still waiting to be done. M1 optimization is in progress, has been started, but needs to be finished, and authentication and asset server implementation are also not being touched yet. So I think it's not going to be that we can finish all those tasks in Q1, but we will prioritize them in a way that makes sense for you, so that you have a good feeling of progress, which means that export and copy and paste will be most likely tackled, while tectonics and M1 optimization will be hopefully finished, and we can improve on that later. I do have a feeling that authentication and asset server implementation might be shifted into Q2.
Till the things in orange, those were the things that were affected by the COVID.
Yes,
rolling.
those are the things that were mainly affected by the COVID.
Okay. And then we've got Q2 and Q3 and Q4. How confident are you on those quarter divisions there, do you think?
It's something that we set as goals for us, which means we're doing our best to reach them in time. Worse for wear, it takes a little bit longer to reach them, but we tackle them eventually. As you can see, coming up are biomes and rivers and roads, as well as general optimizations, before we actually feel like this is a good stop for developing world map and shifting over to city maps and Battlemap integration. And still, I feel like we should be there at the end of summer and go into city map making. I know from my team, I've spoken to Andre, I've spoken to Ilya, I've spoken to Sasha and Nikita. They're all really excited about the city map, the procedural generation for city maps. So they are looking forward to it. It's merely me saying, wait, don't open another bottle until we have finished that part to an extent where people are happily creating world maps. So yeah.
Now, looking at Q2, I know you're saying the team are already looking ahead to almost Q3, but in terms of the biomes, it's quite an exciting space, really, for DEIOS. Have you guys already started to look at how you're going to be handling that?
Yes, there is actually already a working prototype for that. It's just again, it's 4 developers, and Bodhi as a user interface designer and me as kind of project lead. So we need to carefully look at things. When can we address them and when can we tackle them, to not completely get ahead of ourselves. So there is a working prototype. Ilya already created something that is actually, it's not perfect, but it is something that we can build upon. So we have quite a good understanding now that the tectonics come into with the height map and the kind of it's a groundwork for the biome system. We might be getting even more exciting in that regards, because we can already define biome areas just by the way that the landmass tectonic creates an island or a continent.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, I think that is quite cool, and it's at the gates. It's waiting. I feel like we shouldn't switch over starting with that until we can actually offer proper exporting, copy pasting, and just there's a lot of UI cleanup and UX improvement that needs to be done before we really kind of dedicate us full time to developing biomes.
Makes absolute sense. Absolute sense. Now, till we've got 2 demos as we have been talking about, I think it's time for us to actually get on with it and to show some of these things. So if you are prepared, we will go into our preview, or at least our demo of DEIOS. Here we go. And we're through.
And I forgot to make a noise.
Well, I don't think that many people will be too upset about that. Although there was a question, will the music transitions be available on Spotify? Are you going to release your album?
There's going to be the Till Transition album. They're royalty free. You can use them for whatever you like.
Look at that. Generosity to a fault. So, Till, we saw a little bit last month. We saw sort of the wave stuff. We saw the tectonic stuff. What are you showing us tonight?
Okay. Because I'm not. I don't think that I can tackle all of it in full detail. Let's go into bits and pieces of what has happened. You will all, once the patch hits, you will all have everything at your hand and can explore the details. So first of all, I promised that we are going to rework the way that waves look and feel. And I think we've made a good achievement there. Like if you look at the way that those waves are generated, they almost are on point to the feel that we wanted to create, and that is that they look hand-drawn. So they have those little gaps and intersections. They start to fade out at the end. And of course, if you go into your preferences, you can't do it on a landmass basis. So this is a global map setting. But you can actually, I can't remember what does noise strength. There you go. You can play around with the way that they intersect, and of course you can go in and adjust the color. A stream might eat up a lot of that at the moment. I'm not sure if you can see it properly. Now I'm getting too dark.
Starting to blend in with the water texture, So you can really go in and customize.
Yes, you can customize them quite extensively. The only option we haven't implemented yet, which we should probably, is you can't hide them. You have to color them. Probably you can make them invisible. I don't know. No.
Well, you can sort of match the water tone.
I guess. I just realized that you can never get rid of your water waves.
You will never get rid of the waves, even if you blow up the moon. All right.
And there are more settings waiting to be implemented. Like we just had to call a stop to it and say, okay, that's it, because I know that the community has already asked about extending or reducing the amount of waves going outwards. So there's a setting for that. We haven't exposed it yet on the interface. So this is something that we can do later on. The second thing that you will find is under View, Manage Blueprints. You can now find your blueprints. They're all blueprints are finished. We're not doing anything for blueprints anymore. They have been tested. They have been verified. They're working. So we're quite happy with them. And I think that one has been presented last stream, so we can skip that. The last thing that is being worked on currently is the whole thing about the new way that landmass generation works with the new tectonic system. And as you can see, we now have this little sea level slider, which might still need some more explanation to it, because you can lower the sea level to 0 kilometers. Or you can raise the sea level to 100 kilometers, which isn't really self-explaining. So we're still trying to find a way to give that a more meaningful description. Long story short is the higher the sea level, the more islands are being created, and the lower the sea level, the more solid the landmass gets. So I can just demonstrate that. Like that would be a landmass that gets created with a very low sea level. Whereas if I do the same thing with a very high sea level, you can see that it's creating more and more islands. The second thing we did, and that is actually something that we're going to improve with the reworks, is the level of detail is dependent on your zoom level. Like if I create something here, it looks quite nice from that perspective. But if you go in and zoom in, you will see that we're creating the amount of points that are being created is based on the zoom level, which actually I find quite clever, because it gives you more control over the depth of your landmass generation. But it is not perfect when it comes to creating those artifacts here. That doesn't really look natural. But when I now add, oh, sorry, I should reduce the sea level. But if I now add to that, it gets a lot more precise and refined than on the high zoom level. And adding, what did Ilya call it? I think adding splines, so curvature to that, and refining the point generation is something that we're going to revisit in Tectonics version 2 alongside with the coloring of those land masses. And also, again, from a user experience perspective, there are still things that we need to, I think we need to learn our ways into that tool before we can really call it a day on it. Because when you trace something with blueprints, the behavior is still not optimized to where I would like to see it. It's close, but let me show you. By the way, showing, this is the new landmass selection. And the reason why we did that is because if you are zoomed in and you're trying to select tree, but you accidentally select the landmass, because we just had outlines, you never knew that you were selecting the landmass. You were just like, what did I select? So especially with multi-selection, you would probably be like, I don't know what I selected. So with this new little animation, it kind of gives you a warning that you're currently selecting the landmass. So whatever you do, if you move around, it might move the landmass and not the brush or the tree or whatever you actually intended to select.
Does that animation play on the prop when you select the prop as well, or is it
no,
just
it does not. No, we tried to. And again, feedback is appreciated because we did that because we felt like it's a good warning sign that you've selected the landmass. But if you guys feel like you're getting eye cancer from that, let us know and we might change it, because it is, I think, it's something that's open for improvement. But having that animation run over every asset that you select might be just too much. Okay, but I was actually selecting, where was I? I was selecting that and deleting it. So now we can bring in a blueprint here, which is really big. I have a big blueprint here.
I recognize that map.
Come on. Oh, I've locked my blueprints, I believe. Yeah. So I wasn't able to select it. Let's bring it down a little bit and let's rotate it. And make it even. Sorry, wrong direction. Smaller. And put it here. So right now in the current build, maybe that's not the best example. Yes, our whole landmass generation is locked to 25 kilometers. That is just part of the current build. That is, Ilya has already told me that he's going to kind of release that to all different brush sizes, but right now it wouldn't perform properly if I would change my brush size. But I think it still works. It still works as a demonstration of why I believe that we need to do more fine-tuning and more refinements. Because if you have, let's say, you want a sea level, let's put it at 20. So you want to have coastline effects because you've lowered the sea level, but you don't want to create massive islands. If I start to trace that, and I feel like, okay, that's close, I can refine, it's still, the way it generates is so random that you might be like, wait, but I want to add something to here. And now suddenly it generates more out of that. So there is still point of improvement there that we need to pay attention to. And we might expose more options where we say, okay, how many of those points do you want to create when drawing or adding to that landmass? But from a general perspective where I say, okay, you now have two modes. You have the regular drawing mode, which is actually quite good to trace an existing map, or you have the generational mode that is probably more for, I don't really know how my continent will look like. I just have a general shape, and I will let the computer add to that. It's decent enough to hand it to you for testing. And that's what's happening in the current patch.
Lovely. Okay.
Is there anything else? I feel like there might be, but I've forgotten about it.
Tectonics, waves, blueprints.
Yeah, no,
new selection tool.
I think we've tackled everything.
You've tackled pretty much everything.
So yeah, I remember. The blueprints, by the way, if you add blueprints, if you upload blueprints to your blueprints library, they are now being stored in a specific folder in your documents, which means that you can manage your blueprints through the documents folder, and you can manage them through our blueprint management system here, and they are stored. So when you bring back your map, your blueprints are still in place and ready to be continued working on.
And to be clear, those blueprints, those are copies of the actual image that you're bringing in. You're not moving the original image to your folder within the document. So they are.
Yes. We're copying that. We're not moving them from the spot that they were sitting. Yeah, no, we're not causing chaos in your organization.
There we go. All right, lovely. So Till, we've got a second demo.
Yes.
Now, do we need to do anything fancy for that, or can you just switch straight into?
I'm going to switch. So actually, I'm going to close that build because I'm running 2 DEIOS builds at the moment, which is always kind of exciting. But here we go. Okay, so last stream we've been talking about the reworked approach to layers management, and I've already teased that we, from our initial alpha that we did back in 2020, that didn't work out at all, because our initial approach was, okay, for every prop that you create, you get an entry in your layers list, so you can navigate down to a single prop. Now we already have, if I look at that little demonstrational map here I've created, we have so many props that browsing a list with all those assets would be just useless. Instead, we tried to figure out what do you really want to do with layers? Because in Photoshop, layers are used as something that kind of works like those overhead projector foils, where you have those transparent foils above each other, and they might have different blend modes, and you can use layers in Photoshop to organize stuff. But in a map making software, layers are actually something that you want to use to create groupings and organize regions or specific types of assets. So we came back to that and we said, okay, how can we approach that? And the idea is that we are giving you your own complete freedom. I think Guy's hiding it at the moment. So there's a little, sorry, yeah. So still my screen is hiding. Let me, can I shift it somehow a little bit? Yeah, there. Now you can see it. At the bottom of the screen, you have an option where you can create a new empty selection or a new selection from selected objects. Renaming is still incoming. But just to give you an understanding of what that means, we can see that I have, for example, all those assets I selected, I've created as a group that I call West. Then I have East, then I have North, then I have Center, South. I think that's quite obvious. Then I have all my structures, and I can hide them or unhide them. And I have, for example, all my mountains. So it's fairly simple to create your own custom selection sets that you want to do something with. Because what you want to do with that usually, you want to group them up so you can hide them because you don't want to show them to your players, or you want to switch between a political map and a geographical map. So you probably don't want any assets at all to be visible. Or you want to show all the geographical locations, but you don't want to show any settlements. So you want to hide the settlements. Or you want to hide all the labels to make that map completely unexplanatory for your players. So those are the things that you want to do with your map. And that's actually how we wanted to approach that in the first place. Now, I can decollapse those things, and I can see that we create for you specific subgroupings, because you might want to go and say, okay, this is my West region. So I have my whole West region, but now I want to get rid of the mountains because I realized that there shouldn't be mountains at all. So how do I get all the mountains, or let's say you filled it up with too many dead trees and it doesn't look good. So how do you get to them? When you have a selection, we can go into that selection and break it up into the subgroupings of assets. So I can go in there and say, look, trees. We have conifers in there, and we have 3 different types of conifers, and you're not going to be able to read it on stream, but it says there are 363 types of conifer 1 in there, and if I click on that, all of them are selected. Or if I say, no, conifer 3 is actually ugly, let's select that. I can select them. And this is laying groundworks for so many awesome things you can do, because we can go in and say, okay, hide them, make a separate group out of them, replace them with a different asset. I don't know. All of that is possible because we now have broken down the selection to what we think is something that's actually useful for working with the tool. But you can't go in any deeper. You can't go and say, oh, I want conifer 362 to be selected, because actually, when would you do that? How would you know that this conifer is what we're talking about? No, but I can go in and I can say, yeah, actually, that conifer, that's the one that I wanted to get rid of. And I can delete it. It's automatically being removed from the selection. Or I could move it to a different group and say, okay, now it's part of that grouping. Which also means that you can, if you're creating regions, you could actually go and shift them into each other. What is it? It's East. There you go. I can move them into each other. They start to render over each other, but now those regions are blending, and I can still access those regions separately. So I think this is quite a powerful tool. And again, if I want to go and say, okay, East, shift back, please. I want all my structures. I could go in and say, okay, let's select those. And then go in and create a new selection from those objects. And those are just houses. There you go. Now I have houses. And when I select them, they're automatically active. And again, I can hide them and do more stuff with that eventually.
And assumedly you'd be able to take houses and you'd be able to nest them within bigger categories as well. So if you wanted to put them in the East category, you could just drag them into the East. That's ultimately the goal.
No. Well, ultimately, maybe. Right now, we don't have the nesting hierarchy implemented because I think it's too much for now. It's possible, but from our concept standpoint, we said you actually just want to access. I mean, grouping them up might be meaningful because at the end you might still have 100 different custom selections. But for now, you're not going to have a nesting in the first implementation.
Absolutely fine. As you say, this opens up so many different options for us as we move forward. People are really saying, wow, that's incredibly useful. That's really, really useful. Seems a brilliant way to make a world that is pre and post-war, is a selection from Hellrock, suggestion from Hellrock, I should say. So, yeah, absolutely. So a few questions here. Annabelle asks, can we add to an already established layer?
Yes. Not in our current demo build because that is being developed at the moment, but that's the goal. Like you can remove from a current selection and you can add to a current selection or to an existing selection. And the idea is to utilize the select state of things. So if I have center selected and I would go in and add my aqueduct here, because center is selected, it would add to that, which actually means that if I select center and west and I add my aqueduct, it would be added to both selections. And by just deselecting, I think right click just deselect. So now it's not added to anything. It's just being on the stage without any association to it. And I think that is, again, I think that is a quite neat way to get your map organized.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Another question, which is from Asunwovomos. I think that's how you pronounce it. Let's say I want to split a landmass in half or cut a part of it off and move it somewhere else. Can I do that, and would it make a believable coastline? So I think that's an older kind of question.
Older kind of question. Yes, you can.
But expanding on that, let's say, for example, your west collection. If we were to cut the island that your cross, if we were to suddenly cut it in half.
Let's break our test build. Let's see
would
what
it now assign it to the new island, or would it leave the west assigned to the
let's
old
cut
island?
it off. Okay, so this is they're still associated to that island, right?
Right,
but we
except
can
for the
see
3 trees.
Yes, but let's put them here because that is interesting. That's exactly the showcase I wanted to go for. So if I select west, we can see that those 3, because they still belong to west, they're still associated to that. So there's a differentiation between the placement of the asset on the map, which makes it, I think, meaningful and it makes sense to have, if I move the island, the assets on the island should move along. But in terms of grouping, I would see that they are still part of the whole selection. So if I would now move my selection, they would actually move along. But again, if I feel like, oh no, wait, that shouldn't have been the case, I can either move them onto the landmass or I can disconnect them from that selection and I'm happy with it.
Another question from Mr. Gribbles90. Can I bring a layer to front by moving it to the top of the list?
Eventually, yes. That was another thing that we have conceptualized for that. Not in the current build, and I'm not even sure if it is part of the first release. But sorting the list and organizing the list, also searching for specific keywords or search terms in that list is coming. Having something which actually should probably sit on a right-click menu or an option menu where you say, now render this on top of the rest, is part of the concept, but it's quite difficult to implement. So we've pushed it back a little bit and said, okay, let's first finish the basics and then dive into the more complex challenges.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Till I don't know if you've mentioned it. When do we see this coming out?
From a development standpoint, I believe we are about 60% done with it. So I would say the minimum would be 14 days to get it finished. However, then there's still a review and feedback phase. So by the end of March, I'm pretty sure that this is going to be released.
That's exciting. That's exciting. Lots of updates coming out in the next month, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. Very, very, very exciting. Till, I think that's all that we have in terms of those demos. So shall we switch back to our normal switch back to our normal layout? And whenever you're ready, 3, 2, 1, and switch. There we go. Right. So February, it's come and gone, basically. Gosh, can you believe it? February's already over.
Yeah.
It's been a rough month, but it seems like it's been a good month too. So yes. I think, is there anything that you would like to add with regards to your comments on this month?
Yeah, I want to say thank you to my developers, because I know that although they were sick and they were feeling bad, and the problem with COVID is once you get over it, you still have that kind of fatigue that's hanging around afterwards. Mm-hmm. They were so excited about bringing those things to you that they actually really pushed into it. And I just want to say thank you to all my developers, because they were really putting a lot of effort into this, although we had a lot of sick leaves. I'm so much looking forward to release this new patch again in the next couple of days to you, so you can start playing around with the new tectonic system, with the blueprints, and the waves. But aesthetically, I think this update will bring your maps to a completely new level. So we owe you a way to export them, and we know that. So this is going to be our next focus. And hopefully then we can already slowly transition into biomes.
Yeah, very excited for that. Very, very, very excited for that.
In regards to the next stream, I think you've already said it. Let's repeat that for our DEIOS users. The next stream is a little bit in flux. We don't know, because you are going to be on a D&D in a Castle event at the end of March. Yes. I have quite a hectic end of March too, where might be streams or might be guests somewhere. So it's not 100% certain how and when the next mapping and out will take place, but we will do proper announcements in time and let you know.
So watch social media, watch all of the DungeonFog channels, as we will keep you posted as to when the next one will coming out. But by the sounds of things, when the next one comes out, there's going to be so much stuff to play with and talk about that it's going to be amazing, isn't it?
Yes, I'm very much looking forward to handing the stuff to you and then reviewing it with you in our next mapping it out. And again, apologies if it's not end of March on point last Tuesday, but it's shifted a little bit. We will find a good date that suits all of us and gives us enough to talk about in regards to the new updates.
There we go. Fantastic. So I think that's all from us for this month. Faxans asks a wonderful question, which I think we should possibly contemplate. Do you think one day Wizards of the Coast will collaborate with DungeonFog?
I hope so. I mean,
absolutely. Let's convert all of their maps into the DungeonFog world.
Yes. Well, it's been a dream of mine to eventually have a software that is catching the attention of such a big company. I'm a big fan of Wizards of the Coast, and I've been playing on their maps. It's kind of the source of inspiration to do all of that was because I was like, I want to make maps that look like that. So yeah, we will see. Hopefully.
Anyway, from all of us at the DungeonFog studio, thank you all for watching. Remember to hit that like button if you liked today's stream or the show as you're catching it later. Hit that like button or the subscribe button if you're on YouTube. And the Goblin Bell, of course, will announce when new videos come out. Watch social media for when next month's stream will be happening, as we'd love to see you there and to answer all of your questions. Thank you for all of the questions that you have posted this evening and for your wonderful comments, causing me to smile and giggle while poor Tilla's trying to explain things. I do appreciate that. From all of us to all of you, until next time, we wish you the very happiest of map making.
Don't forget, if you want to discuss all any of those concepts with us, go to our Discord. It's dungeonfog.com/Discord. You can find us there.
Links in
our
chat
devs
now.
are always there. So if you have follow-up questions, if you want to discuss ideas, concepts, give feedback, visit us on the Discord. And now, Guy, you can say it. The happiest of
map making.
There you go.
Good night.
Good night. Bye.